It was 200 years ago that Lewis and Clark first traversed the terrain of Washington State. The same vistas that captivated them then remain today, but modern explorers will see something that they did not. Washington State is now one of the most dynamic wine regions in the world. We are now the second largest producer of wine in the United States. We have over 50,000 acres of grapevines planted. Last year we have over 350 grape growers and over 900 wineries in the state, with the number of wineries more than doubling in the past decade. In 2013, the total economic impact of our industry was $4.8 billion. Our wines consistently are top rated by critics, and we over-deliver in terms of quality at every price point. I work for an entity called the Washington State Wine Commission. We are a state government-run agency that represents every licensed winery and grape grower in the state of Washington. Our funding comes entirely by the industry, and we were formed in 1987. Our mission is to raise awareness and demand for Washington State wine through marketing and education while supporting viticulture and enology research. Last year we implemented over 55 programs locally, nationally, and internationally. But let's talk about what makes Washington unique. Our state has a diverse landscape with 13 unique growing regions in which we cultivate more than 40 grape varieties. We have emerald evergreen coasts, snow-capped mountain peaks, and a vast sagebrush desert that gets more than 300 days of sunshine a year. Now, if you look at that, we're going to go deeper into that in the Columbia Valley. Now, in the Columbia Valley, we have what is possibly the most ridiculously cool blend of soils of anywhere on the planet. Why is that? Let's go back in time now. 15,000 years ago, we experienced the largest cataclysmic floods on record, known as the Missoula floods. At that time, in the last ice age, a vast lake formed behind a series of glaciers that spread across present-day Washington, Montana, Idaho, and Oregon. Eventually, that water broke through and carried with it the glacier and would carry chunks of ice the size of large buildings. And this entire mass came roaring down eastern Washington, and all had to fit through a tiny gap called Wallula Gap. At its height, they guesstimate that the water traveling through Wallula Gap would have been 2 to 3 miles wide, 900 feet high, and traveling at 45 miles per hour for about a week. Now, this was not a one-time flood incident either. This repeated over and over again, approximately every 50 years, for nearly 2,000 years. So the volcanic activity in the Cascade Mountains, combined with these floods, give us the unique soil that we have today, unlike anywhere else on this planet. So think fire and ice. Climate. Now, weather of Washington, everybody thinks Seattle raining is the entire state's climate, but it's not. We have these north-south running mountains, the Cascades and the Olympics, that essentially block all the storms moving in off the Pacific, creating a rain shadow effect. So we might get 200 inches of rain on the Olympic Peninsula. Where out east, we're getting about 6 to 8 inches of rain a year. That's nearly a continental semi-desert. So what we have out there, though, are water sources. And this allows us to pull for irrigation. We have the Columbia River, which is majestic. It's fed by snowmelt runoff. And what we're able to do in our industry is dial in exactly how much water the plants need when they need it. We can dial that in to get the grape ripeness where we want it. We can work with the plant to get the dehydration controls when they need it. And we can control the canopy. So what we've done is we're learning now what to plant and where to plant. And research has become incredibly important for that. Over the last 30 years, through industry-supported research, Washington is now changing the game in some of the following areas: pest management, irrigation, disease management, as well as tactics to allow the grapevines to survive the cold Washington winters. We know that what happens in the vineyard affects quality. So with that in mind, the industry, through the Washington State Wine Commission, gave over $7 million to fund the $23 million Wine Science Center at WSU in Richland, which opened last year. Now, this 40,000 square foot technologically research center and study zone has some of the most advanced technologies and equipment in the world of wine today. So our scientists and our students have the tools they need to focus on the viticulture and enology challenges specific to Washington. We believe that this land and its rich geological history creates the perfect climate for wine that nobody else has in this world. We believe in expanding our boundaries, experimenting, and constantly learning, because we believe that we are making history. Thank you.